Okay, ladies and gentlemen, when we're continuing on here with our supplement, our B1 supplement, questions 14 and 15 I'm putting on one video for this reason. Again, same thing we've been asking ourselves all along with these functions, what is the domain? But watch the huge difference in how I do these two problems, because the 3x minus 7 under the radical is the same in both. This index, however, is a 3. It's an odd index versus this even index of 4. And here's the deal. Remember the little prior video I did? When an index is odd, what kind of numbers, what kind of real numbers can you take the cube root of? Well, you can take the cube root of anything that's positive, anything that's negative, or anything that's 0. So it doesn't really matter what's under here. There's nothing here going on special. This can become any real number you want it to be. So the domain for question 14 is simply the set of all real numbers with absolutely no work. And that is because of the odd index on the radical. Now, it's a different story when you come down here with an even index. Because remember what you have to do with an even index. To keep the answer that comes out of the problem as a real number, what you have to do is you have to set up an inequality. You have to take, to find the domain, when it's an even index, you set up an inequality. You take the quantity from under the radical. You don't take the radical itself. You take what's under the radical and you force it to be greater than or equal to 0. That's it. So to find the domain, take what's under the radical, force it to be greater than or equal to 0, and you do that anytime you have an even index. When you solve this, you add 7 to both sides. 3x is greater than or equal to 7. Divide by 3. No sign changing because we're dividing by a positive. X is greater than or equal to 7/3 is my answer. If I drew that on a number line, I find the number 7/3. I include it, so I put a bracket. Greater than or equal to, so I'm shading in this direction, which of course is going toward infinity. So I end up with bracket 7/3, comma, infinity paren as my final answer to this problem. This, what I'm pointing at, is the domain of this function. When it was an odd index, the answer was all real numbers. You didn't have to set up an inequality. So, huge difference between odd versus even on the index when you're dealing with a function involving a radical, a variable under a radical. And we're done.